let's go to New Jersey next, where the governor, Mr. Christie, has been given the green light to cut pension payments. Wednesday, New Jersey Superior Court, the judge there ruled the governor can cut pension payments this fiscal year for public workers. However, unions maintain their legal right to challenge the cuts planned for next year's budget. Governor Christie, he is praising the ruling.
The payments that we'll make this year that we can afford to make pay for all of our obligations for the current employees. So employers are making payments into the pension system. We're supposed to make payments for them as well. We're making all those payments. What we can't afford to make because of the budget problem we have right now are to pay for the sins of the past.
Okay. Let me level the playing field for a second. Governors, as far as you go back in Jersey, maybe up until Florida, to be fair to him, have been playing loose, free and loose with the math here, and they'll borrow from the pension to pay the pension payments. Nobody ever puts in the appropriate number. But Christie struck this deal here, a 7-year deal, less than 3 years ago. And he at the time championed it as the greatest deal since sliced bread. Year 3 is going against those very payments. I understand this is going to play well if he's running for national office, just look at Scott Walker in Wisconsin, but doesn't he have a problem on the broader sense of not keeping one's word as an elected official?
Well, I think the problem is that he's faced with two bad choices. You either raise taxes or you dip into the pension fund. Neither are good solutions fiscally. But I think this whole issue raises the question about our future and being able to sustain our pension systems. And if this is not the biggest argument for pension reform, I don't know what is.
He already had that debate. He made a promise in law. If the workers paid more into the pension system, the state would pay in to make up for the monies it didn't pay in the past. This is not just pension reform, starting a new conversation. He passed a law committing to do certain things. The court said he violated the law. They just said they're not going to force a remedy. This is unethical and illegal, but it seems to have a political constituency.
You know, Andrew, the root of all these things, it's not just in Jersey, is every year, maybe you can explain how, they come up with these fallacious numbers of projected revenue. Maybe not New York, fair enough. But they come up with these fanciful numbers that they never hit. So then all of a sudden, at the end of the fiscal year, there's panic. Oh my God, we didn't make the number. You haven't made the number for the last 7 projected years, and that's even before he came into Trenton. So I'm not even putting all this on Christie. They all do it. They move around the shelves, and then at the end of the year, they don't make their numbers. In business, there's consequences for that. In Trenton or in other state houses, they just pass the buck or borrow it again.
In Trenton. Not in New York, not in Connecticut.
There's a lot of state houses where they do this now.
They were over-projecting the returns as well. I mean, look, this is a problem that's not going away. And if you look at what happened in Detroit with the court ruling there, all of a sudden they're saying, look, pension benefits aren't guaranteed anymore. If counties cannot meet their financial obligations, and states and local governments, then everything's on the table. And I think it's fundamentally going to change how we look at this going forward.
I mean, it's almost like the worst possible kind of bankruptcy, because if I make a deal where I promise Jessica money and I file for bankruptcy, I'm still going to have to pay her at some point.
I agree, but what do you do when you don't have politicians with the political will to make the changes either?
But the governments are supposed to have the political will to take care of their books. And I think that's a lousy deal for the pensioners who wind up getting money taken out of their pockets.
These are people whose pensions are $20,000 to $25,000 a year. The people she wants to impoverish are not wealthy, lazy people. They are people who spend 30, 40 years working, doing public work.
I don't want to
the problem is I don't think this hurts the governor all that much, because there are a lot of people who are suspicious of unions. They're not the political stalwart they once were. They're going to applaud the governor. The unions are already going to oppose the governor no matter what going into 2016. Most of the people who are unaffected in the middle, I'm not sure this registers.
I want to get to this last one because this may be in Mississippi, but it applies to all different levels of government and all different parts of the country, obviously. But in Mississippi, we saw on primary night a surprising return. Tea Party backed Chris McDaniel, who a lot of people thought was going to upset Senator Cochran. It didn't happen that way. And he spoke out against his primary loss here. The 6th-term incumbent, Senator Tad Cochran, and we got into this last night in an interesting way, put together a coalition, and he beat McDaniel. However, McDaniel wasn't happy about it, and he let everybody know it.
There is something a bit strange. There is something a bit unusual about a Republican primary that's decided by liberal Democrats. This is not the party of Reagan. But we're not done fighting. And when we're done, it will be.
Okay, fair enough. Sometimes candidates are raw on the podium here. They invested everything. And then in, percentage point here or there, sometimes even less, can decide. However, some guys like him don't make the phone call and acknowledge defeat and move on, right? How hard you've been, you don't have to name names, but you've been in the rooms where for some it's a lot harder to be graceful, to pick up that phone call. And you try and encourage them to say, it's not going to change things. You got to pick up the phone. You got to say. I don't think
anyone loves making the call, but you make the call. I mean, you have to be gracious about it. This is, he may not like the rules, but he knew what they were getting into the game, and it's sour grapes. It's just really unbecoming, I think.
I don't think he's sour grapes. I think he's right. I don't think Democrats should vote Republican.
Right, but he didn't acknowledge. At the end of the day, he lost and wouldn't certify or wouldn't acknowledge here. He didn't make the concession call, and he's still challenging this when everybody believes the margin isn't something that can be overcome. He's dragging out. Espaillat, he may have done that for a few hours, but today he acknowledged the inevitable, made the call to wrangle. They got together and they did an event. That is more than just showmanship. You have to acknowledge it and move on, right?
I've won and I've lost, and I made the call when I lost, and I sat by the phone waiting for the call when I won. Sometimes I got it.
But it is tough, right, to pick up that phone?
Well, when you've been in the contest for a year and a half and it doesn't go the way you want it to go, it's tough. But as you heard, you knew the rules when you were getting in.
Yeah. Imagine what would have happened in 2000 after the Supreme Court ruling if Al Gore hadn't conceded to George W. Bush and made the speech that he made that basically ended his campaign. How divided the country was in that election, how tight that was. I mean, you look at some of the divisiveness that we've got in the country politically now, I think we could stand to have some better losers and better winners.
You want to, go ahead.
No, I just want to say quickly, McDaniel is upset that Cochran beat him at his own game. He ran a campaign of silently being against African Americans, and Cochran, who delivered for the state for almost 40 years, said, oh no, if that's the campaign you're running, I'm going to expand the base, I'm going to reach out to those black voters, and the black voters in Mississippi said, we're going to turn out and we're going to put Cochran back in.
I hate we'll debate it because I'm with Rich. I hate the idea of open primaries, but like you said, McDaniel knew how the game was played before he got
sour grapes.
Exactly. Coming up next here, Supreme Court. Two important rulings today. One says that President Obama actually broke the law. Now it's limiting his recess appointment power. We're going to have a look at not just that ruling, and another ruling that some are calling a blow to women's reproductive rights here. We'll have more on that after this.